I'll just say it. Lunch therapy is not actual therapy.
What?
You're not a therapist.
I know that.
You need a therapist.
Oh.
What did Rick Pagano say that Milton said
Rick
about
Pagano?
a successful acting career?
The casting director? Are you
The
serious right
casting
now?
director that was in Milton's class with me, what did he say about a successful acting career? What are the components of a successful acting career? Acting, admin, and attitude. Get your head on straight. Get your attitude in order. See a therapist, Joel.
Whenever I'm feeling like my head's going to explode, I just put like a sock on it or a hat on it or, you know, something like that. It keeps my head together. That's all the therapy that I need, okay? That's all I need.
I like her, Chol. You know, she's strong, like Transylvanian woman or like Slovakian woman.
She thinks I'm nuts.
Are you?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think you should get going, Chol, because your show already started. I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 All right, welcome everybody. So good to be here on this Friday. Lunch therapy. For those of you who haven't been to lunch therapy before, welcome. Joe Thornton is great to see you. Joe Thornton is here. Vernus, Clear, Groundhog Day. Yeah, we had a little Groundhog Day there at the beginning. Yes, romantic there with your laptops. This is a beautiful background by Guignel, one of our viewers of the show, one of our contributors. This is a nice hummingbird. We are the cult of the hummingbird, of course. At the top of the show, every show, we take 3 deep breaths, and then we're going to get to the main event, which is an interview with Rick Pagano, who is one of the most prolific veteran casting directors in the business. So it should be really interesting for me, for you, for actors, for non-actors. It's just great to have everybody here. So let's get on with our breathing. I've got some dolphins for you because dolphins are always welcome on the show. It's one of the things. Everyone's always welcome on the show, actually. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Yeah, so this is interesting for me. I've interviewed casting directors before, but I must say, one of the things about me is in my career, I've been intimidated by casting directors and not really understood them. So it's really great to talk to one in person. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. I think one of the things that scares us a lot of times as human beings, and maybe even as dolphins, is the unknown. And one of the things about being an actor in Hollywood, especially traditionally, is that you go see these casting directors and you audition for them, and then you don't really know what happened. You walk out of there just kind of confused. And you never know. I mean, you know when you get the part, but you don't really know when you don't get the part, which most of the time, you just wonder what the hell happened. Is it me? I want to see your pet dolphin in between you and Cam with your laptops in bed. It would be great to have a pet dolphin. I think that I'd have to have a little different lifestyle. A few episodes back, we had an incredible interview Friday with, we had manta rays on, people that swim with manta rays. So check that out sometime if you want. Today, though, we're diving in to the interview with Rick Pagano. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. And you're gonna want to stay for the dance break because it's a bit of a surprise. and kind of fun. So I hope that you will enjoy this interview with Rick Pagano. I'm going to give you a little intro as to who Rick is, for those of you that may not know. Rick is he was the CEO of something called Pagano Manwiller, which was a huge casting office in Los Angeles, and he has throughout his career cast a lot of our favorite films and found a lot of our favorite actors. He's worked with directors like James Cameron, Catherine Bigelow, Oliver Stone, Jerry Bruckheimer, Cameron Crowe, Gus Van Sant. It just goes on and on. James Brooks, David E. Kelley is one of the great writers on television of our time. Well, television is kind of our time. His company has cast more than 90 feature films, including The X-Men, 3, Hotel Rwanda. I mean, a lot of these things are Academy Award winning, Emmy winning. He worked on Altered Carbon for Netflix, The Blacklist, Picket Fences, Chicago Hope, and he also cast the stage. So it's like film, television, and the stage, which a lot of casting directors don't cross over into the stage and theater, do all of it. But he has done all of it at some of the big places like the Mark Taper Forum, the Loyola Playhouse, Lincoln Center. So so that's pretty exciting. Let's just see what the chat room says before we dive into this thing. Gorgeous background. Why, thank you, Loretta. Appreciate that. All right, here we go. Moving on to Rick Pagano, casting director extraordinaire. All right, here we are with Rick Pagano. Thanks so much, Rick, for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
I am so glad to talk to a casting director because a lot of times as actors, we feel like we're kind of in the dark when it comes to auditions, especially, when I started out in this business, we would go into a room, you'd audition for a casting director, you'd leave, and you just really never had any kind of understanding of what happened really from the other end. And you'd get something like a call maybe from your agent who would say some kind of vague comment about how it went. I talked to the casting director and they thought this. But it was really just kind of clues a lot of times, trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm really glad to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I want, a lot of casting directors, they come at it from different angles. Actors, generally there's kind of a path to be an actor, I suppose. But as far as casting directors go, I find that they're all over the map as far as where they came from. And you came from a literary background, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Tell me something about that.
I went to grad school in literature. I was doing my doctorate at Columbia University, and I was teaching there. And I had a feeling I was not in the right place. I took a year off and went to Paris, and I needed a visa. I needed a cheap visa so that I could stay there for more than 90 days. And the cheapest visa was with the School for the Comédie Française, the National Conservatory of Dramatic Art. So I talked my way in. And I worked from 8 o'clock at night to 8 in the morning as a night guard at a hotel. And then I would pump myself full of coffee and go to these acting classes. And I just fell in love with acting and directing and came back to America, returned to New York, and decided that I wanted to change my focus completely. Initially, I went from studying Shakespeare and early English drama to modern drama, finished my orals and writtens, and then for the PhD, and then started drifting into getting theater jobs. Wow. And I got my first job I got by walking up to 42nd, taking the subway to 42nd Street and walking through an entire building and holding out a resume that had basically nothing on it and saying, "Hi, I'm here looking for work." And I figured the easiest way was just to walk in. I got a job the first day working with a company that was doing Buried Child, the original the New York production.
Sam
that
Shepard.
won the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
And we won the Pulitzer Prize the play won the Pulitzer Prize the day after we closed. So we had to shut down. And then I got a job. I managed to get a job at the Pittsburgh Public Theater because of my literary background, being the literary manager of the theater, the producer of new plays, and the casting director. And
Wow.
I just ended up drifting into casting because it was an easier way to make a living. I wasn't independently wealthy. And so I started casting for them. And then I cast for the Mark Taper Forum. And then I went off on my own and became an independent casting director.
How different is it doing casting plays from casting movies and television? And I'm sure it's changed a lot over the years, but what is the audition process like? How is it different? Because I remember when I did a lot of theater, they had different criteria, I felt, when you went in to audition for a play.
From our point of view, we're looking for how someone fills a stage and fills a space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very different when you do film and TV. It's much more about how the camera comes to you. So, instead of sending it out to the world, it's about letting the camera come to you. Another way of saying it is, with theater, you're pushing it out, you're sending it out. With film, it's about what you hide in film and television as compared to what you show.
Oh, that's interesting. Did you get actors that were film actors or television actors auditioning for a play and they couldn't give you that different kind of use of the space?
A lot of times that was a big problem. Actors are in Los Angeles when we were casting for theater. A lot of actors were being so filmic and the directors just didn't understand how to bring them out. And they may not have, in many cases, had the technique to, again, we're talking in real generalizations. Yeah. There's a lot of nuance in this, but in general, New York actors were better at doing theater and Los Angeles actors tended to be better doing film and television. I think that difference has decreased in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah. Where were you from originally?
I was born in Brooklyn, raised on Long Island, went to college in Vermont, and then grad school in New York at Columbia. So I was in New York, and then I went out to Los Angeles to cast for the Taper and stayed out there for 36 years.
Wow. What kind of a kid were you?
I was a dork, really shy.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of smart, but not a genius at all. I was just a high school kid who was really into being the newspaper editor and was the yearbook editor. I was the class treasurer. I wasn't the class president because that would have required someone who was popular. Yeah. I was the class treasurer.
The treasurer. I've been the treasurer before. Definitely.
I was the dork that was good at math.
Yeah. So I met you recently and I found out that my wife knows you, but I had never met you until just a few weeks ago. And one of the things that struck me about you, which was really invigorating, I guess, as an actor, or inspiring, was that you have a kind of rebel quality about you. At least, that's my first takeaway from you. And where do you think you gained that kind of quality? Because if you were, kind of a nerdy kid, kind of maybe quiet, somewhere along the line, do you think it was when you took your resume around in that building, you were like, because that's a different kind of move than being the treasurer.
I think I've always been a little bit of there's always been a part of me that's been a bit of an outsider. I'm a writer. I write quite a lot. And a very famous writer once was asked why writers write. And he answered, I think most writers write because they weren't invited to the party. And and I think I was just never invited to the party. And so, I went to France when I was 16 on a scholarship and I didn't stay at the school. I would go out and play soccer with the guys from town. I would sort of escape the school, which was a breaking of rules. Yeah. I broke the rules when I went to Paris when I was 25, when I was in grad school. I was supposed to finish the doctorate and I didn't. I didn't adhere to the plan. And I think I've always been, and it gets you in trouble sometimes. I've been fired. Yeah. More than once.
Really? I like that. I felt like I wasn't invited to the party. I feel like that sometimes too. And sometimes I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care. And
it's not always a bad thing. Yeah.
I moved to Chicago to work with Steppenwolf and I didn't call them first. I just went there. And, I gave them my resume and they were like, you'll never work here. And I was like, here's my phone number. And they called me that night and I worked there for 2 years. So I find that a lot of times you got to go there and you got to just be like,
Yeah.
this is me. I want to do this. Otherwise, you'll never be heard, or they won't even think about you. And that was one of the messages that you were giving the other day, which I found.
Our industry, I mean, the
So
society in general doesn't encourage you to break the rules or to do anything that might single you out. And certainly our industry is the same way. You're not supposed to, there are all these rules that you're supposed to follow.
Yeah.
But I don't know who wrote the rules, and the rules are rules that are written by people who aren't necessarily looking to your interests as if you're an actor, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage people to not always listen to what it is that industry people tell them, even myself. If what I say isn't serviceable to you, don't do it.
Yeah. There's that old William Goldman thing that says nobody knows anything. And it seems to always be true in the film industry that nobody, or the entertainment industry, is that everybody acts like they know everything, but they don't necessarily know. And I'm finding that out a lot recently because of the Zoom capabilities that we have now. I've been meeting more and more casting directors, so it's not as such a black box anymore. I get to see each one of them and hear what they have to say. And a lot of times I'm finding that they have different rules, casting directors. I know there's the Casting Society of America, but do casting directors get together and say, this is how we're going to do things? Or is it like a bunch of rogue people working in this industry?
Well, I think obviously the CSA has certain rules about how to behave, but I also think that there are casting offices that do things their own way. They all have idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
And, for example, I had a rule when I was working with Sharon, with my ex-partners, Sharon Bialy and Debbie Manwiller, that I didn't want to keep actors waiting for more than 20 minutes. Because if they have to wait more than 20 minutes, their energy begins to flag, they begin to get impatient, and they don't do good work.
Yeah.
So not only is it impolite to the actor, but it's actually detrimental to the process.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that being friendly to actors, my first job at the Pittsburgh Public Theater, my artistic director, Ben Shackman, I think I was casting 30, my first job was casting like 47 roles in 2 weeks.
Was that Big River? Was that?
No, just before Big River. This was before we did Big River. No, Pittsburgh Public was, we were doing The Seagull and we were doing Mr. Roberts. Mr. Roberts had 30 people and The Seagull had, I think, 17.
Wow.
And I was terrified and didn't know what I was doing. And I hadn't slept. And the first day of auditions came around and I said, what do I do? What do I do? And my artistic director, who's now a good friend, Ben, said, you go outside, you shake hands with each actor, you smile and you say, is there anything I can get you?
Wow.
And he said, and that will make them feel at home and they'll do a better job. And he's right. You treat an actor well and it's just good business.
You did another interesting thing that, originally you did it, but you also did it here in Los Angeles, is you went over to the Beverly Hills Playhouse and started taking class. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. As a director, yeah.
And is that a common thing to do for casting directors, to put themselves in a situation where they're going to be around a whole bunch of actors? And
some people, for me, I directed a play when I directed one play that I translated from French to English when I was still in New York, but it was really hard to get a career going as a director unless you had someone supporting you financially.
Yeah.
And I didn't. So the casting was a way to make a living. And I think there are people like that. I know that April Webster, for example, directs sometimes. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people who want to dip their hands into directing.
Yeah, and you've directed several plays, right?
I've directed a lot of plays, about 24 plays, 10 of them mine.
Yeah.
And then many more by other people. And one of my plays has been turned into a movie that I'm negotiating a distribution deal on right now. And there are another two that are in process of.
Can you tell us about that movie that you just did recently?
Actually, we did it a while ago, but I just finished doing post on it. It was a play, and it closed. And a lawyer friend of ours was at closing night, and he sent an email to 125 people.
Yeah,
come see the play. And I called him and said, Steve, it's closed.
Yeah.
And he, what do you mean? I don't understand closed. I said, we've taken down the sets and we've sent the actors home.
It's over.
Gone. It's over. And so he said, I'll give you some money. Why don't you make a movie out of it? And I said, I'll make a movie out of it if you give me some money.
Yeah.
And so he gave me some money, and I had some money saved up, and we pooled our money and we made the movie. We shot it in 9 days.
Wow.
And
9 days.
yeah, we shot the film in 9 days.
Whoa.
My first day of shooting, I think I shot 17 and a half pages,
That's
which really impressed my cinematographer. And my crew was very suspicious of me until after that first day.
Yeah.
Then they liked me because they said he moves fast. Anyway, we did it, and then I finished the post last year, and it's gotten into 6 festivals, and it just won Best Film at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. Beverly Hills Playhouse. That's the theater. Beverly Hills Film Festival. It won Best Film and Best Editing at the Beverly Hills Film Festival, and so now I'm in the middle of trying to make a deal on that.
Wow, that's fantastic! Congratulations.
Thanks.
So this is one of the things that I wondered about. And as actors, we go into auditions and we think, oh, they're wanting. I'm just speaking generally here. I guess I'm speaking about myself. Originally, when I started going into audition for things, I was like, I want to try and be what they want me to be, and I'm not what they want me to be, and I've got to try and be it. And so it was an inner struggle that I was having that was driving me crazy. One of the things that helped me was saying, I'm just going to go in there and try and help them tell their story. Mm-hmm. Do you think that being a literary person, being a writer, coming from a story viewpoint has helped you as a casting director?
I think so, although a lot of times, certainly more recently, I don't think writers and directors and producers are that interested in the opinion of a casting director, frankly.
Really? Can you tell me something about what it's like to work with the directors on, directors, and then also, I guess, showrunners? Can you tell us maybe both the different processes? Television, I'm calling it television now.
Film and TV, for my mind, and even film and TV are very different. And I really invested my time in wanting to do movies, which is probably a bad bet because television apparently is taking over, and there are fewer feature films being made now. But in feature films, you generally have a director that you work with. That's the person you work with.
Yeah.
And it's up to you and the director, mostly the director, but you work with the director, and then you go to a producer who either says yes or no. Again, I'm making big generalizations here.
I know, but I think the thing is, understanding the process of it is really helpful for us.
TV is very different. It's mostly the writers who are the producers and the showrunners, and they're the ones who make the decisions. The director is basically a guest star for the most part. Most TV directors will tell you that. They use the same nomenclature for that. Mm-hmm. And it's really about the guys who are there every week creating a style. They're the ones, the creators of the show, the showrunners, the writers. They're the ones who make the decisions about casting. And they want to see, they feel that television is about what you see. So they don't want to do an offbeat. They don't want to do something that's offbeat casting. For example, if you brought in someone who normally plays the bad guy in a lot of roles, and you bring him in for a good guy role, they think I'm crazy. I did it on Drugstore Cowboy, where I brought in James Remar, who had been only playing bad guy roles, to have him play the good role, the guy the role of the cop. And Gus Van Sant, who was a smart director, loved it and ended up casting James as a good guy. And since then, Remar's been playing, mostly good guys.
What was that like working on Drugstore Cowboy? I mean, that's a classic film.
A lot of fun.
Did you know that it was was it a tiny film at the time, or did you know it was going to get?
It was a small film.
And did you work on it from the beginning, like you said, with the director, and then brought it out to people?
Yeah. Well, the only person who was cast was Matt Dillon. Mm-hmm. Matt was cast, but the other 3 roles, Kelly Lynch and Heather Graham and James LeGros, we found.
Wow. And what is your process for? I mean, I know it's changed a lot, and maybe we can talk about that, the casting process. But how do you keep track of all those actors? Do you have like a filing cabinet? Do you have a thing on your computer? Is it just,
remember all of them?
Yeah, it must be impossible because there's so many that come and go.
You can't
I don't know how you do it. So what do you do and is it just sometimes you rely on kind of what is on your mind at this time, or some performances that you've seen recently? I mean, how do you keep track?
you go through lists, you go through submissions, but you also go through lists of actors. You can use IMDb.
Yeah.
I still, on occasion, if I'm really scrambling for something, I have an old copy of the Player's Guide, the Academy Directory,
Really?
and I'll just flip through A to Z, and it helps you come up with, someone named Michael.
Yeah.
Michael Thompson reminds me of Michael Morrison.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm going through in my head, I'm thinking of people named Michael who might be right for the role.
Yeah.
It's about triggering. It's about trying to find triggers for your memory. That's really what it's about.
It seems like that's the way the creative process is too, right? It's a lot of times it's a lot messier than you think.
It is. It's messy.
Yeah. That's interesting
so
that you said
that. And sometimes you remember people, remember someone who would have been perfect for the role a week after you've cast the role. And then you want to hit your head because you think, why didn't I think of that person?
Yeah. One of the hardest things, and maybe you run across this too in this industry, one of the hardest things for actors is to not take things personally.
Yeah. Well, the key is to not evaluate. The evaluation is a really bad idea in general. I think you want to go in. Well, I think too many actors go in, and it's what you said at the beginning. I think too many actors walk in, they do their audition, and then they walk out and they ask their agent how they did. They're looking for feedback.
Yeah.
And I think looking for feedback is a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think you do it, you're out, it's gone, it's done, move on, next. I think your job is to simply stand and deliver, do the best you can do, and then let it go. Because if you don't let it go, you're trying to second guess yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What did I do wrong? And you didn't do anything wrong. You can always be a better actor.
Yeah.
But instead of thinking about what I did wrong, you want to just do the best work you can do. Maybe there's some specific choices that you didn't make that you could have made. But in general, it's a really bad idea to try to second guess what we're thinking. You may have done a brilliant audition and we just thought that you're the wrong type, or we've changed the role. Suddenly, instead of it being a man, it's a woman, or vice versa. Or the director's cast the role without telling the casting director, and he's sitting there seeing 15 people for a role that's already cast.
That happens, really?
Sometimes, not often, but
is it like a formality, or is there some kind of SAG rule or something?
No, there's no. But also, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you just don't know, and it's too late. You find out on Tuesday morning at 9:30 that the role's cast, and people are coming in at 10. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You want to honor the fact that the actors prepared those roles, and so you do it. You see the actor, and he or she is right for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you do that. I just think that the evaluation is the problem. Too many actors are trying to second guess, and you walk in the door trying to be something that you think people want.
Yeah.
And it's like that old saying about, waiting for your train to come in.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there hoping my train comes in, and I'm waiting at the airport. You know what I mean? It's just not.
Wait a minute. You're waiting at the airport. You're waiting for your train to come in, and you're waiting at the airport.
That's another way of saying
that.
you go in trying to do something that you think is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But not something that's integral and organic to you, something that you feel is your best choice.
Yeah.
So you go in and you make a choice that you think belongs to what they want, trying to second guess them.
Yeah.
And all along, all they wanted to see was probably what your original choice was, what the choice that you would have made without trying to second guess them.
Yeah.
And you would have been cast.
Sometimes I find that it's better not to overthink a script. When you get a side, sometimes you want to be really aware of your first impulses, as long as you're understanding the story of the script, because sometimes people, like you said, they second guess themselves. I also think when there's an important period of time from when you leave your car to when you get in the room, that if you're second guessing yourself along that way and in the room, it could be a real problem. What do you think?
I think I'm going to say something that's going to sound really like a cliche.
Yeah.
But then I want to follow it up with something that's more nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to walk in with a sense of yourself and try to just bring yourself into that. That's the generalization. That's the cliche.
Yeah.
Nuanced part of that is that for Pirandello, for example, the famous Italian playwright, believed that we had multiple personalities, that we had a huge palette. Mm-hmm. And I think too many people have a very, very narrow notion of what that means to be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that what you have to do is recognize and develop, if you don't have it, as an actor, develop a palette that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So that when I say just be yourself, the answer to that is, well, which part, which particular shading are you looking for of myself?
Yeah.
What part of it is that you want to bring in? And that's when you begin to look at what the script says and what the character is. And that's those elements of your palette are what you bring in and focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So being yourself is really only the first half of the answer.
Yeah.
The second half is understanding that and learning that your palette is much bigger than you may realize, or than you demonstrate in most of your work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that has changed over time too, that they want more, that production now is looking for people that are more, quote unquote, real, more bring themselves as they are rather than try and be a perfect person? It seems like in the 80s, a lot of times in films, they were looking for people that were like perfect. Do you think that's true, or do you think that's just a conception that I have?
I think people are looking for more interesting faces because there are too many. I mean, there is a sense that there's a kind of flatness to some faces. I know that I worked with Jean-Pierre Jeunet on one of the Alien movies. Jeunet had done Amélie.
Yeah.
And Jean-Pierre was very frustrated because a lot of the American faces that he saw, he felt were very without character. That they were pretty people, the women and the men were pretty, but that there was no character to their faces. And so we had a really interesting time looking for people I had a really interesting time trying to find people with faces that he would respond to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true about that particular director too. I mean, that's kind of the strength. I mean, Amelie, just shots of her face were so important and prominent, and he's such a visual director that.
Sure. And Catherine Bigelow also has a very, very specific notion of very specific about what she's looking for. Some directors have a very, very specific, type that they like.
You worked on Picket Fences as well, right?
Did.
David E. Kelly, what was he like to work with?
He was great. He was that was another example. I had heard that the casting director that he had usually worked with was about to adopt a child and wouldn't be available. So I called the general number at 20th Century Fox, and he picked up. And I asked for David Kelly, and 45 seconds later, I got David on the phone, and he said, "Send me a resume," and I faxed him a resume. And then a half an hour later, I got a phone call that we should come over and meet with him. And then we got the job, and we did Picket Fences and Chicago Hope, and one or two other projects with them.
Yeah. There's some great actors in Picket Fences, and
we had a lot of fun on them.
Did you find a lot of these actors? Did you find them yourselves? As far as like Elizabeth Moss is in it, and Don Cheadle, and there's some like incredible actors in this thing. Did you find some of these people fresh, just like no one had ever seen them before?
Mostly, yeah. I mean, not Kathy Baker.
Yeah.
And not, but yeah, a lot of them were people who hadn't really worked very much. Don Cheadle had gone to Cal Arts with Debbie, with my partner.
Yeah. So, what is the joy of being a casting director? Where do you find joy in it the most?
Well, that's, I think it has been in the human contact. But that's not something that you really see much of anymore. A lot of self-tapes, and certainly in the last year and a half, we haven't been doing any in-person auditions. I think there's something interesting about, panning for gold. I think there's a lot of fun in, you see 30 people and maybe 28 of them may not be great.
Yeah.
You meet two people who are new and really talented, and that's exciting.
And so it's a sense of discovery, I guess, of these people. What can you tell an actor these days, like with the way things have changed? Things have changed a lot just in the last year. People are having to do their own self-tapes. When I look at you look at the way casting is done now, it seems a little bit closer to going to Amazon and picking out products because everybody's just kind of in rows and listed. There's rows and rows and rows of people. How can an actor stand out? How can they get themselves seen, get themselves in the room? Is there some kind of advice that you can give them?
I think everybody's got to have everyone's got to find a way to be inventive. I would say something that I'll get into trouble for, but I would say just, knock on doors. As soon as the pandemic's over, go knock on doors.
Yeah.
I think I told you the story already about Bradley Cooper 5, 6 years ago when he was on the David Letterman show for Silver Linings Playbook. And Letterman asked him how he got his start. He said, I took 350 pictures and resumes. I put them in 350 envelopes. And I went around to all the casting offices in Los Angeles and dropped them off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how. Now, I'm sure that, when at that time, everybody was saying you can't do that.
That's my experience. Anytime I get a job, it's because I did something where people are like, you can't do that. Like I went to Century City one time because there was an office there, a production office for a show. And I went and got in the elevator in one of those high rises and went in and gave my headshot to this person sitting behind a desk. And like a year later, I got a job.
Yeah.
A year later, but it was like, if I wouldn't have done that, obviously I wouldn't have gotten the job.
Yeah. I mean, Debbie and I were doing 24. Yeah. We were doing Picket Fences, Chicago Hope. We're winning Emmys every year. 24 was winning Emmys. Mm-hmm. And yet we would find that at 6 or 6:30, we would have a session that was falling apart for the next morning. And a lot of times if someone walked in at that moment and they looked remotely right, we'd set them up because they just happened to walk in.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing, I think, to be a little rebellious, break some of the rules. Mm-hmm. But you do it with charm. You do it with politeness.
Yeah, you can't be crazy.
You don't do it angrily. You don't do it aggressively. You can't be arrogant about it.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't like what you're doing, you just hands up, smile, say, was just trying to get a job. I really understand. Of course.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I've done what you say. I go around and give out my headshots, and a lot of times it's a lonely, weird experience because you go to some offices and there's no one there, or sometimes they have a box outside that you put your headshot in. It's always different.
You never know, and
you're kind of wandering around, feeling like you said, not like you're not invited to the party. You got to do it somehow. How important are relationships with agents when being a casting director?
I think it's important, but frankly, agents want to take you to lunch when you're doing a project that they like.
Yeah.
They all want to be your friend when you're doing a project. They all want to call you back when you're doing a big project, and when you're not doing a project, they're not as interested in you.
They're all business.
So it depends.
Yeah.
I mean, they're busy just trying to, and I think for a lot of agencies, except for the top agencies, they're having a harder time paying the bills, and so they're scrambling, and they just don't have time to be openly, friendly unless there's some work involved, potential work for them.
Yeah.
And, actors who used to make, character actors in their 40s and 50s who used to have a quote of, $10, $15, $20,000 a week are being asked to work for Scale Plus 10. Everybody's being asked to work for Scale Plus 10 if you're not one of the stars. And the same with television. You're working for top of show most of the time. So it's and even a lot of series roles that used to be series regular roles are now being turned into recurring roles because it's a way to save money. Mm-hmm. I don't particularly approve of it, but it's what they're doing, and it's how their stock prices go up.
Yeah, you were saying something that was very interesting. You were saying get a picture of yourself that maybe your loved one took. And put that on as your headshot and take that around. Something that really is you and not necessarily like a pre-produced headshot.
And I say that because if you've looked at how we work on Breakdown Express, we can get, for one role, we can get 3,000 photos. And unless you either know the person already, you're going to go through those, and you can eventually, there's no casting director that I know who is immune to snow blindness. I just think eventually you're going down this list of of pictures, and each one has each page has 100 pictures on it. You can pick 25, 50, or 100.
Yeah.
I pick 100, and you go through, and that's one page. You've got another 24 pages to go, and each one has 100 pictures on it. How would a human, and a lot of times there's a time limit.
Yeah.
So how do you go through all those? How can a human being go through all of that?
Yeah.
So I don't understand why people keep picking these kind of generic photographs of themselves that aren't really going to help them to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And standing out doesn't mean being, again, gimmicky about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to find a picture of yourself that is organic and that feels like an authentic picture of you, but isn't necessarily a typical headshot. Mm-hmm. I think the example I may have told you was when we were doing Point Break. Catherine Bigelow had I had pulled a picture out of Lori Petty because I'd already cast her in a picture at Paramount, a Stephen King movie.
Yeah.
So I knew she wasn't available for the dates, and I put it on a side table. And Catherine came in to look at the new pictures that had come in, and we had a long table where all the pictures were. And for some weird reason, on that particular morning, Catherine walks in, and instead of going to the table, she goes to my desk. She picks up the picture of Lori, and she goes, "Who's this?" I go, "It's Lori Petty." And I knew immediately. And she said, "Well, that's who I want. That's it. That's her."
Really? Just like that?
Just like that.
Wow.
She knew immediately it was Lori. And it was because, and she had a picture, and Lori's picture was not a typical picture. It was not a headshot. It was almost like from the knees to the head.
Yeah.
And then she had this angry look on her face. She had a ripped t-shirt and ripped jeans, and she looked like Lori. I mean, it was a really authentic picture of Lori, but it wasn't a typical headshot.
And anybody would have told you can't use this headshot. You can't use this as a headshot.
They were telling her
Totally.
at the time, you can't use a headshot, but she used it, and that's what got her the job. Besides being a good actress.
Yes, of course. But you got to somehow get through. Got to get through. And I find this, it's totally human nature to be drawn to the people that you're familiar with. And so I remember, you mentioned the player's directory. You look through that, and it's like you see a famous person, you're like, oh, just your eye is just drawn to them, or somebody oh. Yeah. And then, like you said, there's a whole person there. You know what I mean? Like when you see a picture of somebody you get all these memories, and you see a three-dimensional person, you see all their different, personalities and things like that. Whereas when you just see a flat headshot, that's all you see is a face. I even, in auditioning, somebody once said to me, when you go into the room, just be aware that you're not just the front of your face. You've got a three-dimensional being behind that face. You've got a brain, you've got organs, you've got all the, and sometimes as actors, you go into a room, you're like deer in the headlights, and you don't even realize you have more than just, you just lose all your ability to understand your place on the planet.
Well, when you're doing an in-person audition, even if it's for film or TV, it's an active theater.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people forget that you have to keep them awake. And so you can't just be filmic.
Yeah.
It's a weird combination. You have to be filmic, and yet for the people that are in the room that might make the decision to either, send your tape on or not.
Yeah.
Those people in the room are a real live audience.
Yeah.
And so you have to find a way to toe the line between making the work filmic and making it also interesting enough that the person in the room responds to it.
I've heard it said, some people say it's more of a job interview than it is an audition. You got to bring yourself in there as yourself. And so that they understand something about you and who you are.
For years I've been saying you have to walk in like you're the host of the party.
That's
and not the guest. The guest is there going,
I like that.
Is it okay if I use the bathroom? Is it okay if I get a glass of water? And the host walks in saying, how are you guys doing? Is there anything I can get you? Are you okay?
Yeah.
You can change the air in the room if you walk in with that attitude, and you end up more confident, more relaxed. You do a better job. They feel like you're in charge. The people that are watching you feel like you really know how to take charge of the role, of the work, that they're not going to have to baby you or figure out how to, give you the role, how to do the role properly. And in fact, a student I just had last week just emailed me yesterday that he used that and he got the role.
Yeah.
He just got booked yesterday.
Really? That's so great.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's one good piece of advice.
I think it's a great piece of advice because, as actors, we have to take kind of ownership of the fact that we're the actor. and we're, schooled to be an actor. And so we know what we're doing. So we should go in there and present it in that way. There's an interview with Bryan Cranston online where he says that, where his career kind of changed when he realized that he was just going in there to show them his work, and he does the work as an actor. And then, he leaves feeling like, oh, I did my job. And I wasn't in the mindset of like trying to give them what they want. And a lot of times they don't even know what they want. They just know it when they see it. Right.
Right. And sometimes they even know if you're doing your job, you're teaching them how to do the role. It goes like this. I had a teacher who used to say it goes like this.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The actor's saying, I know a little part. It goes like this.
Yeah. To say it goes like this.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can show a writer moments in a scene that the writer didn't even realize he had put in there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fun. That's got to be fun for the writer.
And a good director can do that too. A good director can show a writer that there are places in the scene where you can turn a corner, an emotional corner that the writer didn't even realize was there.
Now, Rick, you're a wealth of information. Do you teach actors or coach people in the industry? Is that something that you're doing now?
I've done a little bit of coaching. I live in New York now, so I don't do I don't really do it so much. And I teach a class with one-on-one.
Yeah.
One company. I don't want to overwhelm myself or anyone else. I still enjoy teaching because I began as a teacher.
Yeah.
And I like trying to find a way to integrate my fading knowledge of literature, and how you analyze literature.
Yeah.
With with teaching actors how to take a scene and maybe figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's good. Do you have a particular process that you give actors for when they get a script and then all the way to the casting room?
And it depends on how much time there is. When I teach the class one-on-one, if I teach the class at one-on-one, there's 16 actors. If I'm lucky and I can split people up into pairs, 8 scenes in 3 hours is not really, there's no time to have a process, except one or two quick kind of instant coffee-like notes.
Yeah.
If I'm coaching an actor, then it's a whole different process. And then I can, or if I've got time, like when I'm directing a play, I can actually, work through a process and give specific notes, try it 3 or 4 or 5 different ways.
Yeah.
Have someone do it the wrong way, give them a note that might work for one moment in the scene. And it might not work for the rest of the scene, but if it works for one moment of the scene, then the actor knows to use that particular emotional key at that particular moment. It allows the actor to solve one moment, but it's not a fast process.
No. As actors too, a lot of times in auditioning, we're trying to give the perfect audition. And it seems to me that a lot of times when you watch audition tapes, because they have some of them online of people that actually won the role, and you know their face, and a lot of times they screw up the lines. They, make some kind of mistake or something like that. And it's not about being perfect. I take it. It's more about like hitting some kind of a moment that they want, or that they've maybe never seen before, or something that really sparks something. Would you say?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's a lot of things. I think it's having a certain amount of skill that you've learned from really training as an actor. It comes from curiosity. Yeah. Being curious about human beings and learning from observing humans and wanting to be a little bit of it's not politically correct to be a voyeur these days, because, men looking at women, you be canceled. Men looking at men now is, people make all kinds of presumptions about
it's so interesting though, because,
for more than 3 seconds, but it reminds me of Catholic school, a little bit.
Well, the whole nature of watching a film or watching a television program is you're kind of spying on people. It's like a simulated spying on people, right?
Right. Creative people learn by either experiencing something or by observing something in other people. And so if you're discouraged from observing other human beings, it's a problem. It's a real problem. So I think you have to get out there and experience life. And you also have to be curious about other people. And also, I think in scenes, you have to be curious. Too many actors are worrying about their lines. And when I think they should be worrying about the other person's lines. A lot of times it's about good listening and responding to what the other character is saying to you, as compared to ejecting taking your line and putting it out into the world. It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's really about reacting.
Acting is reacting. So where do you want to go now, Rick, with your career? Are you looking towards directing more films?
I'm writing and directing a lot more.
Yeah.
I've just finished casting a movie that's in post, and I have one or two projects that I might be casting in the near future, but mostly I'm enjoying writing and directing.
Oh, that's great.
That's really what I'm trying to do next.
Yeah. And what medium do you want to kind of take on? Do you want to continue doing film, writing for film, writing plays?
I think mostly it's going to be film. I don't think that the theater in New York has evolved to a place that's not really so much in line with my aesthetic as much as what I write and what I create. I could, but I don't really know that I have a feeling that it's not really where my work would be received best. So I'm focusing on, and right now I'm just focusing on 2 movies. That's all, 2 scripts that I'm working on. And then what I'm writing is a variety of stuff. I'm writing a short story. I'm writing another play. So
that's great.
I'm busy. And
You've got a family. That's a big thing. How do you keep your head right in this industry? Do you do any kind of meditation or anything? Something I ask most of my guests.
Meditation every morning, except when our son's home. It's hard to do it. We have a 9-year-old son, so it's kind of hard to meditate when he's in the house.
Yeah.
We meditate, and therapy really helps. Therapy is all the best people do it.
Yeah. Not easy sometimes.
Exercise.
Yeah.
And eating right. And
I find that exercise is a really great way to generate creativity. I get all kinds of great ideas in the gym, and I think it's just because the blood's flowing and the synapses are going rather than just kind of sitting. And sometimes I'll actually move around a lot and then meditate. And it's amazing how the brain activates. Just something that I've found recently.
Also, sleeping is good.
Sleeping is good. I wish I could get more sleep.
Well, sleeping is good because often a lot of writers write in the morning when their sleep is fresh, or they write at night before they. I think the dream world, the world of the unconscious, is a really good resource. And so the closer you are to that, in one way or the other, whether it's at the front end at night or at the tail end in the morning, I think that that helps your creativity.
We have a viewer that said, Todd Lee, that said that he will give his brain a question at night, and in the morning, a lot of times he'll have the solution because your brain kind of processes it in that state. And lately I've been looking into brain waves, and it seems to be true that there's, your brain waves speed up during the day, and you get into like a beta state that is not as conducive for learning new things, creativity, and that kind of stuff. And so when you meditate, sometimes it slows down your brain waves into, say, an alpha state or something below that, which makes it so you're conscious of inside and outside at the same time, which is a prime place to be for creativity.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
This has been a really fascinating conversation. I really appreciate, Rick, you coming on the show. I'm going to end the show because we're running out of time. But yeah, I really appreciate you speaking to us because, you're an inspiration, because I love what you say about not following the rules. I understand that a lot of times that doesn't mean, being an asshole, but it means
it's a charming way to do it.
Yeah. It means don't sit back and let people tell you what to do. Because a lot of times those people are just, well, I don't know. They use the word gatekeeper, but sometimes those people are just making rules for their own convenience because they can't handle, maybe an onslaught of different people heading off their headshots. But one of the things that you find, I think, when you do what you're talking about,
is that you find that you might be the only one doing it because other people don't want to step out of line. So it's not really a problem because you're the only one. And I'm rarely, when I go around drop off headshots, do I see another actor.
That's right.
You know? So it's not that big of an imposition, but that's kind of a secret, I guess.
Yeah, I want to just mention one thing quickly.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be a story about Picasso, that when Picasso wanted to sell a painting, he had a studio that had a side office, a little side studio.
Yeah.
And when he wanted to sell a painting, he would take the paintings that he wanted to sell and he would put them in this small studio, and he would leave the door ajar. They would bring in the clients, he would bring in the buyers.
Yeah.
And as you bring them into the main studio, he would walk over to the door and pull it closed. And they'd say, "What's in there?" And he'd say, "No, you don't want to." He'd say, "You don't want what's in there. That's not for you." And inevitably, they would say, No, I want to go in there," and they'd go in. So it was a little bit of the con man.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah.
And I think that's just a really important lesson for anyone who's creative.
Yeah. You come in with your script and you're like, "Here, I'd like you to read the script." And then you have like a script behind your back. You're like, "Well, wait a minute. What's that behind your back?" "Oh, that's nothing. Don't worry about that. Read this script."
Don't worry about that. Yeah, it really helps.
I love that. All right. Well, we'll end it on that note. Thanks so much, Rick. And have a great, great day.
Stay safe and healthy.
Right. Okay. That was Rick Pagano. I hope we all learned something there. Super nice of him to come and give us kind of the insider information on what it is to be a casting director. Super helpful too. If you have anybody that you know who's an aspiring actor or a veteran actor, this is going to be a good conversation for them. I see Sophia is here. Hey, Sophia, good to see you. Thanks everybody for being here. I've got a really interesting thing to do at the end here. I found a singer from Quebec whose name is also Rick Pagano. Yeah, and I got a hold of him. I was like, you got to be on the show because your name is Rick Pagano as well. So our dance break today that we're going to dance out. At the end of the show, we dance to someone who's a great musician who's doing a cover on YouTube, and I've gotten the permission from Rick Pagano himself from Quebec, not the one from New York. Good to see you, Julie. Thanks for being here. Yeah, thanks everybody. All right, so let's get into the dance break. This is a place where we just kind of dance it off, shake it off, have some fun. This song is a little mellow, maybe even sad, but here we go.
And just stop your crying. It's the sign of the times.
He's got a great voice. This guy.
Welcome to the final show. Hope you're wearing your best clothes.
Yeah.
You can't drive the door on your way to the sky.
I'm thinking this means amazing, right?
You're
Amazing.
really going down here, but you weren't really good. We never learned we've been here before. Why are we always stuck and running from the bullets? The bullets.
Pagano, the singer, happens to be a great singer.
And just stop your crying. It's the sign of the times. We gotta get away from here. We gotta get away.
By the way, if you haven't subscribed to Joel Marshall's Lunch Therapy, please do.
Stop your crying, baby.
Also, we're taking suggestions. This is a very interactive show.
They told me that the end is near. We gotta get away from here. We don't talk enough. We should open up before it's all too much. Will we ever learn? We've been here before. It's just what we know. stop your crying, baby. It's
Too
the
bad I didn't get
sign of
Rick Pagano to
time.
dance to Rick Pagano. That would be cool.
We got to get away. We've got to get away. We got to get away.
Everybody's
We've got
crazy.
to, we've got to.
We're all crazy. Everybody is.
We got to, we got to away.
Actors just have to portray the crazy people in the world, so. Right? It's all psychology. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.